So, we are going to have a new talk about Lightning because this is a stage that is mainly about the technical stuff that we are building on Bitcoin. So we are going to have now GC Shrader. I hope that is his last name that way. But before we start, I have to remember you to go tomorrow to El Sonde because it's the Bitcoin beach, Enjoy some pupusas at Mama Rosa's and see the beach and where all this stuff started. So it will be a really great plan. Time value of Lightning with Jesse Shrader. Thanks a lot for being here. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Awesome. Maybe we could just start with a question. What's the second best crypto asset? Thank you. Okay, it's the right room. Okay. So, anyways, I'm Jesse. I'll be talking about the time value of Lightning. So, I know there's been a whole bunch of interest in yield products, and we've seen some consequences of those recently. So, I'll be talking about quote-unquote yield on Lightning. So, first I'll talk about risks, how it should be viewed as a service, some of the tools, and a bit of the data that we're getting from Amboss. I'm here from amboss.space. That's our website. So a big question is, how can I earn Bitcoin? And if you don't know where the yield is coming from, you are the yield. And the alternative to that is actually providing a valuable product or service. So how can I earn Bitcoin? You can offer reliable payments as a service, and sometimes that's called the risk-free rate. So even though it's called the risk-free rate, there still are some risks. When people say risk-free, I think what they're really referring to is the fact that there is no counterparty risk. So you don't have to trust anyone else in order for this thing to work. And in addition to that, you also don't have to worry about inflation risks, which is kind of another form of counterparty risk. But that said, we do have to deal with the risk of the Bitcoin protocol. There could still be bugs. But I think a lot of us have come to an understanding that it is extremely low risk after the long life of Bitcoin and it being battle tested. But it is a hot wallet when we're dealing with Lightning. Hot wallet means that it's always connected to the internet. And as we found out recently, the Lightning protocol itself is not free from bugs. We've still discovered some recently, which was a bit of a fire drill for us. So that could be implementation specific, or it could be on both implementations. In addition, I've turned this thing red because hardware, I think, is the main issue for Lightning. You're going to want a reliable device. And where that really comes down to is, people are using Raspberry Pis, which is a hobbyist computer, but it is, you are essentially subject to failure whenever there's a power outage. So this could corrupt your database, and this is essentially your ledger. How much money do I have? Well, I have the only record of it. It's on my Lightning node. So you definitely want to protect this. I think the folks from PlebNet, for example, would really encourage you to get an uninterruptible power supply so that your Raspberry Pi would never have an unexpected power failure. And then the last piece is just user error. I think a lot of folks are hashtag reckless. They're trying this technology out to make the payment system work. But people make mistakes. So what is a good service? Really, it's a functional, efficient settlement service. So you want high payment reliability. When you go to give your taxi driver their first sats, you probably don't want to have to cycle through 4 different Lightning wallets in order to get them their first payment. You want it to work on the first time because we want that user experience. We also want great connectivity. So that means it could be in terms of internet or your peers on the Lightning Network, that the payments are going to flow through. And we want these payments to be low cost and high speed. So part of the value that you provide is through connections. Whether you're connecting customers to businesses, businesses to other businesses to create that circular economy, or communities, between communities, within communities, it could be country to country. So we added the communities feature on Amboss, and so we've got PlebNet dedicated to education, Diamond Hands in Japan, Rings of Fire all over the world, Netherlands, plebs to Salvador, and Einensvanzig community in Germany. So by creating this payment network, here I have a display of different channels that my node has connections to. But part of that service that you're doing is opening and closing channels. You're doing rebalances to provide that high reliability settlement service. You're doing rebalances, buying channels, or doing swaps to say, I'll take in Lightning and I'll give you back on-chain Bitcoin, or vice versa. So in order to facilitate that, what we created was a Lightning marketplace called Magma. And on Magma, you can just go and buy a channel. Now, like, who's buying channels? Like, one, it's businesses that want to make sure that they can receive payments over the Lightning Network. And also, what we've noticed is that nodes are buying channels just to bump up their reputation numbers. They can have a larger connection, and whatever scores that people are using to evaluate whether this is a good node or a bad node, well, they found out you can basically just buy this, buy connections. But it actually turns out, I mean, these are valuable channels, you know. So we've recently divided Magma into two sections. One we'll call Magma Connect, and that is aimed at businesses and new nodes. So they'll be able to pay for channels and also create bulk channel orders. And if you are familiar with markets, this is the bid side. So looking through Magma Connect, you'll see several nodes that you can just buy a channel from. They have already offered up their liquidity, and they've set prices for it. So I can buy liquidity from a high reliability node. You can also click on the nodes themselves and be able to research them completely. So here's kind of what it looks like. You pretty much specify how much Bitcoin liquidity you need. So for a business, that might be, well, I plan to receive 1 Bitcoin in payments over the next month. You know, maybe doing a whole lot of volume. Or actually, not that much anymore. But let's see, you can also set parameters. So do I want more channels, so smaller channels? Or do I want really large channels? Am I a hotel, for example, where I might need some large channels to actually make sure these larger payments can go through? And you can also set the pricing. In addition, you can set the duration of the channel. How long is this going to be open, and what routing fees are my customers going to experience when making this payment? So I could say, like, I don't want the customers to actually pay anything. And we see this kind of with credit and debit cards, where the merchants take on this cost instead of the customers themselves. And then the last piece, which was a very important addition, is setting requirements. So saying, like, I need one of the top 150 nodes on the network. Like, these are the only ones that I'll be buying channels from. And maybe it needs to be run over Tor, and they need to have at least 15 channels. The other side of this is, we'll call it Magma Earn. And so that's at Lightning service providers and established nodes. This is where, like, hey, I want to earn a return on my Bitcoin. So I would be able to deploy my Bitcoin on the Lightning Network, create this payment network, and get paid for it. So for this, we've got the ask side. So you can offer up your channels and also start fulfilling those bulk channel orders. So it looks almost exactly the same, but here I'm scrolling through a whole bunch of nodes that will pay me to open a channel, and they're specifying how much they will pay. So this is the ask side when I'm offering to sell channels. I've got maybe 1 Bitcoin to allocate on the Lightning Network, and I can do set the size of the channels and also set my pricing. And similarly, set the duration, the routing fees, and set those requirements. So Nick Bhatia, who was adjunct professor at USC, wrote this paper called The Time Value of Bitcoin. And in it, he included this node accrual rate, which is the NAR. And with that, you can kind of assume that a node on the Lightning Network is just going to earn a certain amount. But it has some assumptions. So one is that the income is from routing only. Now, this is kind of just the general idea. So there's a time component and there's an income component. So when we launched Magma, it wasn't super applicable to use that node accrual rate. So instead, we generated an APR. So saying, okay, people are going to buy a channel, there's a base fee for that, and how big of the channel, I'll pay a percentage. And then based on that time, we'll annualize it. So that's 52,560. That's the average number of blocks per year. But this assumes that you're not going to be making additional income from actually routing the payments over this channel that you provided. And here's the data that's coming out of Magma. So on average, for the week, we're seeing that node operators who are offering their Bitcoin on Magma are earning between 1.5 to 3% earnings annually, when we annualize it. I also created an additional statistic called the node accrual rate 100, the NAR 100. So I'm going to sell the channel, and then I'll assume that all of that liquidity that I put on the Lightning Network, all of that will route, and I'll earn some additional because of that routing. So that would be an additional source of income, and that could push your earnings a bit higher. Now, a caveat to this, the mempool has been quite empty at this point, and we will see how this market evolves. As the price of Bitcoin transactions and channel open transactions increases, we may see that the Lightning routers are going to take advantage of that and say, okay, it's too expensive to send a transaction on chain. Why not do this on Lightning? And we can have the instant settlement, and I don't have to worry about the fees on Bitcoin's base layer. Now, I mentioned that there's a whole bunch of different durations that you can keep a channel open. And we also see some information about how much people are willing to pay for a long-lasting channel versus a short duration channel. Now, what we see is we essentially generated a yield curve, which normally you would look at for like bond markets. But for different times, we see the highest amount of earnings or earnings per time for short duration channels. So by opening a channel that's for 1 month, you might actually, if you're a lot more active on the Lightning Network, you'll be able to take advantage and potentially earn a bit more. Whereas you don't see that as much for longer duration channels. But one thing that we've noticed from the community is that when people offer channels on Magma, they might actually be discovering new nodes that need that liquidity. And they may just open a channel outside of Magma. That maybe they don't need our service to bring buyer and seller together. It's simply working as a discovery platform. So in conclusion, we've got Lightning node operators. They are earning Bitcoin, and they're providing a reliable payment service. And then Magma bids and asks are helping to actually set the price for the time value of Bitcoin. And in general, the earnings range from 1.5 to 3% annualized. So if you want to get started, try it out. You can head to our website, amboss.space. Overall, what you'll see is it's a Lightning Network Explorer to research nodes and kind of work on this developing reputation system for the Lightning Network. And also, you can go to Magma and start earning or offering liquidity or buying channels to support your business. And thanks so much.
Hi there. Just curious if you can give a little intuition about why the shorter-lived channels would be yielding more. It seems counterintuitive to me. I haven't thought about it much.
One piece of that is you might have noticed in the orders, there's a base fee, and then there's kind of a fee rate for how big of a channel to make. So every time, when we annualize it, we're kind of assuming that like now you've exhausted this 1 month channel, now you're gonna have to pay for it again. So this is going to be like a cost in a way.
Is that kind of because the liquidity tends to be one way? So you exhaust the channel and you need to go again?
Yeah, so currently we don't have a whole lot of visibility on like what's happening with the liquidity. So thank goodness Lightning payments are private for the most part. It's private by default. Recently we added some features to get a little bit more visibility to kind of guide folks on running on the marketplace. But generally, like people are paying for a new channel, and so this is going to push that up. But this is like kind of cutting edge. So I mean, I'm very interested what other people think about this. There's another reason, which is the channels could close early.
Looks inverted to me. Just
it is. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, so I was just curious when you're offering up your liquidity, as far as my understanding goes, there's no like technical enforcement of that duration or fees. So I was curious, like, do you guys monitor if like the people selling that liquidity actually honor that, or is it enforced? I was just curious about that.
Yeah, that's a great point. We don't have any enforcement on whether people are keeping these channels open. But what we do have is a reputation system. And the sorting for the marketplace is based on their reputation. So we see right now G-Spot is running the show here with a 91 reputation score. So yeah, you'll find that right there. And so the reputation would adjust based on how early they close the channel, if they were to close it early. Awesome. Thank you guys so much.
Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot for that